Hello everyone, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo with another episode, and I am here hoping we will be getting more and more sunny afternoons. Hey, it's springtime. So I saw this thread as I was discovering a new channel, and that's Andy Ford's channel. And he was doing this thread that I believe was started by Steve Carlson, and it's talking about the gateway albums that you heard that prompted you to collect a particular band. They became one of your favorites, and so you started collecting as much as you could of their releases. And I would recommend that you check out Andy's channel. He has been around for a while, it appears, and he's got a very strong subscriber base, and he's got some really interesting content on his channel. So he's been doing it by decades, and I thought, I can do this as well. And I went through, and I think I can do an episode. This is the first one. I can do an episode for the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and then the 2000s, even though we're already into the third decade of the 2000s. So yeah, all right. I'm gonna do this now. The caveats with this thread is that one, that the band needs to have had at least 4 releases, and that you own at least 3 of their releases in their catalog. So certain bands, are kind of eliminated right from the start. I mean, when you think about for the 1960s, which is what I'm doing with this first episode, Jimi Hendrix, you can't really include him because he only had 3 official studio albums. All these other albums were, they were different. So he's not included in my 60s list. But I do have 10, and I strove to have 10 albums for each decade. Got a little more difficult later on, because while I have 3 or more records for later bands, and they are among my favorites, I did not listen to them at the time these albums were released. So that's the thing I'm throwing in here. I heard the album at the time it was released, and then that sent me on the journey to collect this particular artist. So that's kind of how it works. See, maybe it'll become more clear as I go on. So I'm going to start off with the 1960s. Now, again, a little bit of a caveat with this. In the 1960s, I was in elementary school, so I was not buying records. When I heard these records, these were records by mostly that my brother had, but also one of my sisters. So I heard these records that I'm going to show at the time. And then eventually when I started buying my own records, I started buying these artists because they left such an enormous impression on me. Even at that young age, I was just really amazed by their material. And so as I got older and started collecting my own records, then yes, I went and started getting them. And one of them, and I've ordered them according to the release year. So the first one I'm going to show was released in 1961, and that's this Do the Twist with Ray Charles. I was amazed when I heard this record, and this was on the Purple and Red Atlantic label. I was just amazed listening to this record. I don't think I was listening to it in 1961, but it would have been you know, maybe around 66, 67, somewhere around there, where I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. But man, tell me how you feel. Heartbreaker. What I Say. That was just the big, you know, the big hit. But all these songs are so good. And it's even got the little dance steps, you know, on the back, so you can learn how to do the twist. So yeah, as I got older, I started collecting more Ray Charles. And you know, the weird thing about it is that it's not always easy to find copies of Ray Charles, especially the OGs, because I mean, they're out there, they're in record stores, but they're often just played to hell, okay? Because they were just played a lot. And I don't see very many reissues, but at the same time, even though I love Ray Charles' music and my collection is getting larger, he's not always first on my mind when I go out record shopping. Somebody that used to be first on my mind, but now I've bought just about everything that I want of his, but from 1963 is this one, the Freewheeling Bob Dylan. This is a MoFi issue, the 45 RPM, which just sounds amazing. But yeah, when I was a kid, the song was Blowing in the Wind. And I mean, we sang it in elementary school. Our music teachers taught us how to sing it. And then there was also, let's see, Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. I probably don't remember that until a little bit later, when I was starting to get into my teens, and same with Masters of War. But those two songs also made a really, really deep impression on me. But Blowing in the Wind was the one that really got me. And I did have a regular, release. I don't think it was an OG. It was probably a repress, which I have since lost. But it was, I'm pretty sure, the first Bob Dylan record. But this was my first exposure to Bob Dylan. And it just, for a young boy's mind, it really, really piqued my curiosity. I may be fudging this a little bit with the Bob Dylan release, but definitely not with this one, the Beatles, with the 1964 kind of a compilation, Something New. This one, I think, was put together and released for the U.S. market. It's got the German version of Come Give Me Your Hand, or Can I Hold Your Hand, I should say. And it's got Slow Down and Matchbox. I think this was probably my brother's record at the time, and I got my own eventually. But yeah, that was my first exposure to the Beatles, and I loved listening. I played this record over and over and over again, and then he started getting other Beatle records, and that just turned me into a lifelong Beatles fan. So I got almost everything of their official releases, but Yellow Submarine, I don't think I had that one. But anyway, yeah, this was, when I started recollecting, I was always looking for a copy of this, and as close to an OG as I could find. Difficult to find, because again, they're often just really just beat to hell because they got played so much. Anyway, so from 1964, Something New by the Beatles made me a lifelong Beatles fan. Now this is a comp, a greatest hits comp, that was released in 1966 for the Kinks greatest hits. And again, my brother had this record, but I loved this record, okay? So I was probably not listening to it in 1966. I probably heard it for the first time again, maybe around 1968, 1969, when I was, around 10 or 11 years old. But I just loved all these songs. I mean, it is a really solid greatest hits compilation. And when I started collecting records as I got older, the Kinks were definitely on my list because I just loved their music. And as I started listening to their other records, I really loved pretty much everything they did up until they kind of fall off in the 70s. And I can't remember which one. It might be the album after the one that has Lola on it, which might be called Lola. Which I don't have that one, but it seems like they kind of fell off after that. But yeah, the other ones are such excellent, and that was the record that opened the door for me. Now, record that opened the door for me for the Mothers of Invention, for Frank Zappa. This was one that my brother had, and I was listening to it in 1967, 1968, around then when it was released. And this is the second album by the Mothers of Invention, Absolutely Free. Have it on the blue Verve label. And this is a mono pressing that I have. The cover is in a little bit rough shape, so I don't take it out. And I also have a Zappa Records release of this, which I have to say, I mean, it sounds really, really good, but some of the mixing, I don't know. I'll have to listen to these again to compare them. But yes, this record fascinated me. And it was the door that opened the way for me to become a lifelong Frank Zappa and Mothers of Invention fan. I mean, I've got all these records on this shelf here, going all the way across, are all my Frank Zappa records. I've got almost every release that was available on vinyl originally. And sometimes I have several copies of different pressings. I just love Frank Zappa and the Mothers material. Also at this time, released at the same time as Absolutely Free, was this record that my brother had, and that's the Rolling Stones' Between the Buttons. This album was just absolutely amazing to me. Again, I heard it probably when I was like 9, 10 years old. And of course I heard the US release, which the US release, if I remember, it has Ruby Tuesday on, right, yeah. And Ruby Tuesday and the British release, this is the British release, wasn't released until Flowers. But the American release, as I recall, had Ruby Tuesday. But then there, these other songs here, Yesterday's Paper, Cool, Calm, Collected, Backstreet Girl. These songs turned me into a Rolling Stones fan for sure as I started collecting. Although I will admit that I really didn't get deeply involved into collecting Rolling Stones because I got Hot Rocks. And for me, Hot Rocks was, all I needed. And now that I think about it, I didn't need to go back and collect so many of the older records because, while they're good, Hot Rocks is all I need. And it's everything after that, that I would collect. But yeah, I didn't really start buying a lot of Rolling Stones albums for quite a while because, Hot Rocks satisfied me. But now I have quite a few. And it was all started by Between the Buttons. 1967 was a pretty strong year, and another record that was released that I heard at the time was this one here, the Moody Blues, Days of Future Past. This made me a lifelong fan of the Moody Blues. I love their records. I love their material. I love the atmosphere they create with their songs. And it just really, really began with this. This is not really their first release, close to the first release, and it's the first one that I heard, and I just was amazed by it. The story and the music, because as a young kid, I was really, really interested in music, classical music as well, especially if I felt like it was telling a story. And it's easier to tell a story with music, when you've got lyrics to go with it. But yeah, the music really fits the atmosphere that each song is trying to create. On the Darum label, Darum. I always say Darum. Anyway, Days of Future Past, the Moody Blues, lifelong fan and lifelong collector of their music, and that's how it started. I guess you can't. They were my favorite. This group was my favorite band for a really, really long time. They're not anymore. My favorites are actually more modern. They're a lot of my top 5, and in fact, I would think just about all of my top 5 favorite bands are relatively modern, 1990s and later. But for a long time, this band, my favorite, hands down, and this was, what a debut in 1969. Just absolutely incredible. My brother picked this up, and I can remember listening to it, and I listened to it so many times that I actually screwed it up. I fucked it up by dropping the needle on it, and I put a really loud pop. It didn't skip, but it was a really loud pop. And my brother was really pissed about that, for sure. Anyway, Led Zeppelin 2 was pretty good, really. It was pretty good. To me, it doesn't surpass this one. Led Zeppelin 2 is just more of this. And I like this one better. Although it's not my favorite Led Zeppelin album, okay? Yeah, some of these are they're not my favorite Led Zeppelin, or not the favorite album. Even that Bob Dylan record I showed, that's not my favorite Bob Dylan. And Something New is not my favorite Beatles. And of course, the Kinks' Greatest Hits it's almost my favorite because it's such a great comp. Absolutely Free is among my favorites for the Mothers of Invention and for example, but it's not my favorite. In Between the Buttons is not my favorite Rolling Stones. And as I say, Days of Future Past is not my favorite Moody Blues. And the Led Zeppelin debut is not my favorite Led Zeppelin album. So this next one, though, might be my favorite one, and it was my first one to hear of this group, and it's the first album of theirs, and that's In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson, released also in 1969. This is an amazing record for a lot of reasons, not just musically. I mean, when this was released, and this again was a record that my brother picked up. When this was released, the cover had absolutely no text, including none on the spine. And I think this might have been the first record to do that. And then the gatefold has the lyrics on the inside. It's just that cover. And as I understand, the record company wasn't really happy with it not having any text at all on it, not even the record's catalog number. And I don't know how well it sold at first, because really you're looking at this record and you've got no idea. And it's a debut record as well, but by King Crimson. So again, what the hell's going on here? So I don't know if it really sold that well at the beginning, but apparently, word of mouth started getting around of just how absolutely incredible this album is. And, my brother had picked it up and I started listening to it. And again, this was the gateway to listening to King Crimson. And this, as I say, this might be my favorite King Crimson. It's just their sound evolved and changes with the lineup. But yeah, I think this is probably, it's not just my first experience with King Crimson. This is my favorite King Crimson album. And then also released in 1969. I have it on CD. I used to have it on vinyl, but not anymore. And this was another record that my brother had brought home. And that's The Who, Tommy. It's just, I have such a hard time explaining how I reacted to this album. But I found it just absolutely riveting, the story. The music, absolutely amazing. And I listened to this over and over and over. And it was for a long time, it definitely got me started to collect The Who. And I thought, wow, this is just absolutely amazing. But, I still think it's amazing. But I do like Quadrophenia better. I think Quadrophenia is more mature, more developed, and the storyline is more accessible. But this is, frickin' brilliant. If I said Quadrophenia was a 10, this is a 9.999. Okay, so, this is just really amazing. It just mesmerized me for hours. Never got tired of listening to this record at the time it came out. And yeah, it turned me into a Who fan. And then, as I started buying records, I bought this one, and then, started buying others. Who's Next? Another just fantastic album. So those are the records that hooked me into some of my favorite bands. These were records from the 1960s. So I'm going to be doing an episode for each of the decades, although I'm lumping the 2000s together, even though we're talking, 25 years, which is really 2.5 decades. We're going into the third decade. Well, we are in the third decade, getting ready, halfway through it. But anyway, yeah, leave a comment in the Down Under. I know I didn't mention a lot of others that I could have mentioned, but yeah, I'm limiting it to 10. And I had to really, really think about how strongly I felt about a particular band, because there were a couple that I had in this list that I eventually bumped off because I really wanted to get somebody else in the list. So leave a comment in the Down Under. What were the gateway albums from the 1960s for you? Hit the like button, please. It certainly helps out when you do that with the distribution of my content. Subscribe if you haven't, but by all means, even if you're subscribed, please hit that like button. You can also find me on Instagram as NewsDude76. That's NEWZDUDE76. I post photos of records, but a lot of other photos as well. Then I have a YouTube channel called Kelvin Wazoo, where I post these videos, but also other music-related videos and articles. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe we'll check out the rest of the series. We'll see how it goes. And remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.